The Arena of Shame. The twin suns burned high above the sky of Euryalus, a strange and ancient world where power meant everything, and mercy meant nothing. In the center of the capital city stood a massive structure made of black stone. Locals called it the Arena of Shame. It wasn't for sports. It wasn't for war. It was for punishment and humiliation. Crowds filled the arena seats, shouting, laughing, and throwing scraps of food. In the middle of the stone floor stood a young alien woman, thin and shaking. Her name was Vera. Her violet skin was bruised, her long silver hair tangled. She wore a simple white robe, stained with dirt and blood. Chains locked her hands behind her back. Her eyes were wide, but she didn't cry. She hadn't cried in days. She stood alone. No one came to defend her. A merchant whispered from the crowd. "She's a half-blood," said another. "She deserves it." High above, sitting on a floating platform, the council watched with cold faces. Their robes were golden, their eyes full of judgment. "Begin the punishment," one of them said. A giant creature stepped forward from the shadows. It was 7 feet tall, with armor made of bone and glowing red eyes. The crowd cheered wildly. This was not justice. This was a show. Vera looked up at the creature. Her knees shook, but she stayed standing. Her people had abandoned her. Her bloodline was cursed, they said. Her mother was a royal. Her father, no one ever dared to speak of him. He wasn't one of them. That was enough. The creature raised its massive fist. The crowd screamed, "Do it!" But before the fist could fall, a voice shouted from the side, "Stop!" The crowd fell silent. From the far side of the arena, the heavy gates creaked open. A man stepped out. He was human. His clothes were dusty. His boots were torn. A black backpack hung from one shoulder. His name was Jake Carter, a cargo pilot who crash-landed on Euryalus 3 weeks ago. He wasn't important. He wasn't strong. But he was walking toward the beast, straight into danger. "Who is that?" Someone in the crowd muttered. "A slave? A madman," said another. Jake didn't stop. His eyes locked on Vera. Her face was full of shock and fear and confusion. She didn't know this man. Jake stepped between her and the creature. "You'll have to go through me first," he said quietly. The arena went completely silent. The High Council stood. "You dare interrupt our law?" One of them barked. Jake turned slowly. "Your law? This isn't justice. It's cruelty. You call her impure, but I see someone braver than all of you." Laughter broke out across the arena. A human, protecting a cursed alien girl. The council gave one order. "Strike him." The bone-armored beast didn't wait. Its fist hit Jake hard in the stomach. He flew backward like a broken toy, crashing to the ground. Blood came from his mouth. He didn't get up. Vera gasped. Guards rushed in, dragging his body away. The crowd laughed again. But one person, just one, stood quietly and watched. Vera. Later that night, Jake woke in a dark cell. Pain burned through his chest. He touched his side and winced. Broken ribs, maybe. In the corner of the same cell was Vera. "You're awake," she said softly. Jake looked at her. "Barely." "Why did you do that?" she asked. Her voice shook, not from fear, but something deeper, something no one had ever given her before. "Kindness." Jake coughed. "Because no one else would." Vera stared at him. "I don't even know your name." "Jake," he said. "Jake Carter. I'm from Earth, a long, long way from here." Vera nodded. "I'm Vera. And you just made yourself the enemy of an empire." Jake smiled, even through the pain. Wouldn't be the first time. They sat in silence for a while. Far above, the council was already planning what to do next. But what they didn't know was that in that small prison cell, something powerful had begun. Something that couldn't be chained. A friendship, a rebellion, and a story the galaxy would never forget. marked by courage. The cell was cold. The walls were made of dark stone, damp with moisture. No windows, only a dim blue light buzzed above, flickering every few minutes. Jake lay on the floor, trying to breathe slowly. Every breath hurt like fire. His ribs ached, and his arms were scraped and bruised. He could barely move, but he was alive. Vera sat a few feet away, still watching him. She hadn't taken her eyes off him since the guards threw them in the same cell. She had seen many things in her short life: violence, rejection, cruelty, but never what she saw today. No one had ever taken a hit for her, especially not a stranger, especially not a human. "Are you sure you're not insane?" she asked softly. Jake smiled, though it hurt to do so. "Probably am, but at least I'm not a coward." Vera lowered her eyes. "You don't understand. What you did, people don't do that here. Especially for someone like me." Jake coughed. "Then maybe that's the problem with your world." She looked up again. "They'll kill you, Jake. They'll kill us both." Jake sat up slowly, wincing in pain. "Then we better make it worth it." Above them, in the grand tower of the council, High Chancellor Oryx paced in front of a glowing map. His golden robes dragged behind him like smoke. "A human interferes in our law," he growled. "Unacceptable. That creature belongs in the mines." One of the guards nodded. "Shall I send him there, sir?" "No," Oryx said coldly. "Not yet. I want to know why. I want to know who taught him to care." Back in the prison, hours passed, maybe more. No clocks, no sound, just pain and silence. Suddenly, the heavy metal door creaked open. Jake tried to stand but fell back. Vera stood quickly, eyes sharp. A figure entered, tall, wrapped in silver armor. A helmet covered the person's face, but the voice was firm and female. "You are Jake Carter," she said. Jake nodded slowly. "Depends who's asking." The helmet lifted. A woman with fierce golden eyes and dark braided hair stared at him. Her skin had battle scars. Her jaw was sharp. Her voice held power. "My name is Serana," she said. "I lead the underground resistance." Vera blinked. "Resistance?" Serana looked at Vera. "Yes. And you, child, are the spark we've waited for." Vera stepped back. "You must be mistaken. I'm nobody." Serana narrowed her eyes. "You are the daughter of the Forbidden Union, royal and rebel. You carry the blood that can end this empire." Jake frowned. "Okay, what is going on?" Serana turned to Jake. "When you stepped into that arena, you changed everything. No one has stood up for her before. Now, the people talk. They whisper. They remember." Jake shook his head. "I'm just a pilot. My ship crashed here. I don't want to start a war." Serana smirked. "You already did." Later that night, in the tunnels below the city, Serana led Jake and Vera through secret passages carved beneath the streets. The air smelled like oil and dust. Old machines buzzed on the walls. "We built this place from scraps," Serana said. "The council thinks it owns the planet. But they forgot. The people still breathe. And we haven't forgotten the prophecy." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Prophecy? Of course, there's a prophecy." Serana stopped and pointed to a mural. Painted in red and black was the image of a human standing beside an alien queen. Between them, fire and stars. "It says a warrior from the stars will bleed for the broken, and the lost royal will rise." Vera stared at the mural. "That can't be me." Serana's voice was calm. "Then why did the human defend you? Why now?" Jake stared at the mural. He didn't believe in magic or fate. He believed in doing what was right. But still, the image looked like something out of his dreams. In the council chambers, a shadow moved behind the throne. A small figure slipped through the curtains. It was a servant boy, only 10 years old. He carried a tiny device in his palm. "Message delivered," he whispered. He turned and ran. Beneath the floor, a secret cable carried the signal through the city and into the tunnels. Serana received the message and smiled. It's time. The next morning, Vera and Jake stood on a rooftop overlooking the city. Smoke rose from distant factories. Flying ships moved between tall glass towers. Guards patrolled the sky in hoverbikes. Jake wore a stolen uniform. His wounds were wrapped. He still limped, but he held a stun blaster now. Not much, but it felt good in his hand. Vera wore a long cloak. Her eyes were sharp, determined. No more fear. Serana approached. "Are you ready?" Jake looked at Vera. "Are you?" Vera nodded. "Let's end the silence." Serana handed Jake a small disc. "This holds a truth the council buried. A video. Her mother's last words. Her father's identity. The world needs to see it." Jake took the disc. "Let's give them something to talk about." Final scene of Part 2. In the main square, a large screen lit up. Crowds gathered. Council guards rushed toward the plaza. Suddenly, the image appeared. A royal woman, tear-stained, holding a baby. She whispered, "To my daughter, they will come for you. But one day, someone will stand beside you. And when he does, don't be afraid to rise." The crowd gasped. The screen went dark. And from the shadows, a voice said, "She's not alone anymore." The bloodline secret. Smoke still lingered in the city square. The screen had gone dark, but the image of the royal woman, Vera's mother, remained burned in everyone's mind. A whisper had turned into a roar. A name once forbidden was now spoken in secret corners. Vera. But where was she now? Far below the city, in the twisting tunnels of the resistance, Jake and Vera moved quietly. Serana led them through old train tracks, now abandoned, their steel rails rusted and cracked. "We can't go back to the surface," Serana said. "The council wants you dead now. Both of you." Jake shrugged. "That's fair. I did kind of mess up their little show." Serana smirked. "You didn't just mess it up. You lit a fire." Vera walked in silence. Her fingers touched the edge of the cloak she wore, eyes filled with thought. The video of her mother, those final words, echoed inside her. "Someone will stand beside you. And when he does, don't be afraid to rise." She looked at Jake. He didn't look like a warrior. His face was bruised. His walk was slow. But he had done more for her than anyone ever had. "Where are we going?" she finally asked. Serana stopped in front of a huge metal door, covered in dust and old markings. She pressed her hand on a scanner. A soft green light blinked. "Someplace forgotten," she said. Inside the chamber, the door opened with a loud groan. A rush of cool air hit their faces. Inside was a dark, round room filled with old symbols on the walls. In the center stood a crystal pedestal, glowing faintly. "This is the Hall of Truth," Serana said. "Only a few even remember it exists. This is where your story truly begins." Jake looked around. Creepy, but cool. Vera stepped toward the pedestal. As she did, the crystals began to glow brighter. Blue, then gold, then silver. A low hum filled the room. "What's happening?" she asked. Serana's eyes widened. "It's responding to you. Your blood. It knows who you are." The pedestal shifted, revealing a hidden compartment. A thin glass tube floated up. Inside, a hologram flickered to life. An old man with sharp features and deep eyes. "That's my grandfather," Vera whispered. The hologram spoke in a slow, calm voice. "If you are seeing this, my granddaughter, then fate has found its way. You are the last heir of House Velen. Your mother, Queen Myra, was taken from us. Your father was not of our world." Jake leaned closer. "Not from Eurylis." Serana nodded. "He was human." Jake froze. "Wait, what?" The hologram continued. "Your father came from the stars. A soldier, a healer, a human who saved our queen and won her heart. But the council feared your bloodline. They feared a child born from two worlds. They erased your father's name from the records, killed your mother, and hunted you from birth. Vera stared at the floor. Her knees grew weak. Jake caught her before she fell. "I don't even know who I am anymore," she whispered. "You're the only one who can change this place," Jake said. "And I'll stand with you, every step." That night, Vera sat alone beside an underground stream. The glowing water reflected her face, but she barely recognized it. She had always felt different, unwanted, broken. But now, she knew the truth. She wasn't broken. She was dangerous to those in power. Jake sat beside her. "You okay?" She gave a soft laugh. "No, but maybe that's a good thing." Jake nodded. "You're strong. You've always been strong. You just didn't have someone to remind you." She looked at him. "Why are you doing this?" Jake hesitated. "Because I've seen what silence does. I've seen people cry for help, and no one listens. But when I saw you in that arena, I couldn't walk away." Vera's voice softened. "Then maybe the prophecy isn't just about me. Maybe it's about both of us." Meanwhile, above the city, Chancellor Oryx stood in his private chamber, watching the footage of the arena on a large screen. He rewound the moment Jake stepped forward, again and again. "A human," he muttered. "Always the humans." A shadow entered behind him. A tall alien with sharp horns and golden armor. "My lord," the figure said, "the rebels are spreading. We've captured one of them." "Good," Oryx said coldly. "Tell him this. If the girl and the human do not surrender, we will burn the lower cities." Back in the tunnels, a rebel burst into the chamber where Serana stood. "They took Rillo, one of our best. He tried to buy time for the others to escape." Serana turned to Jake and Vera. "We don't have time. The council is going to start killing innocents. We need a plan." Jake stood. "Then we hit them first." Vera looked at the crystal in her hand, the key to her family's lost power. "I know where we need to go," she said. "My mother had a secret chamber inside the palace. If we get there, I might be able to unlock it. There could be more truths inside. Proof. Weapons. Something." Serana nodded. "Then we move at dawn." Final scene of Part 3. At sunrise, a small team of rebels prepares quietly in the shadows. Jake loads a blaster. Vera tightens her cloak. Serana gives the signal. They disappear into the tunnels. Above, the city wakes, unaware that a storm is coming. A girl once left alone, a human who bled for her, and a secret that could break the empire. The escape and the chase. The night air was cold and sharp. Far beneath the capital city, the resistance prepared for one of its riskiest missions yet. The plan was simple on paper: sneak into the royal palace, find the queen's hidden chamber, and recover whatever truth was left behind. But everyone knew it was a one-way mission. Jake pulled on a stolen officer's coat. It didn't fit perfectly, but it would help buy time. Vera tied her silver hair into a tight braid and adjusted the scarf around her face. Her heart pounded like thunder in her chest. She wasn't just sneaking into the palace. She was returning to the place where her mother died, to the halls that once rejected her, to the empire that called her unworthy. Serana handed her a small device. "This will help you open the hidden chamber, if it still exists." Jake loaded his blaster. "We ready?" Vera nodded. "Let's finish what they started." Above ground, just before sunrise, the streets of Eurylis were quiet, too quiet. Jake and Vera moved through the shadows of tall towers, blending with the early morning workers. Behind them, two rebels followed at a distance, keeping watch. Jake tapped his wrist communicator. "We're 10 minutes out." Serana's voice crackled in. "We've jammed the palace sensors for 15 minutes. After that, you're on your own." They crossed the outer gate without trouble, thanks to forged codes and fast talking. But as they reached the palace walls, things started to go wrong. A patrol appeared early. Jake grabbed Vera's hand and pulled her into a supply tunnel. They pressed against the wall as heavy boots marched by. Vera whispered, "We don't have much time." Jake nodded. "Let's move." Inside the palace. The building was massive. Golden pillars, wide marble floors, guards at every corner. But Vera knew it well. Her mother had brought her here in secret when she was just a child. She remembered the halls, the paintings, and the narrow servant path that led to the royal wing. They slipped through a side door and into a hallway filled with old portraits. Most were covered in cloth, but one had been left exposed. It was Queen Myra, Vera's mother. She stopped and stared. Jake looked at her. "Are you okay?" Vera placed a hand on the frame. "I don't know if I'm ready." Jake said gently, "You don't have to be ready. Just be brave." She nodded and turned away. "Let's go." They reached a wall with strange markings. Vera ran her fingers across the symbols. Her hand trembled. I think this is it." Jake handed her the device. She placed it into a small slot on the wall. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a soft blue light lit up the floor. The wall slid open with a whisper. Inside was a circular room, untouched for years. Dust covered everything: books, scrolls, weapons, and strange alien tech. At the center stood a glass pedestal, glowing faintly. Vera stepped in. The pedestal lit up brighter as she approached. Jake scanned the walls. "What is all this?" Vera didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on the pedestal. It opened with a soft hiss, revealing a thin bracelet covered in ancient alien runes. As soon as she touched it, her skin glowed faintly. Jake raised his eyebrows. "But, is that normal?" Vera's eyes widened. I feel something. Like heat, but inside my blood." Suddenly, an alarm blared. The jamming had ended. The council knew they were here. "Run," Jake shouted. "The chase begins." They raced through the palace halls as red lights flashed and guards poured in from every corner. Jake fired 2 stun blasts to slow them down. Vera held onto the bracelet, her heart pounding. As they reached the garden exit, 3 guards blocked the way. Jake raised his blaster, but the guards were too fast. Then Vera raised her hand. A wave of blue energy exploded from her palm, knocking the guards back like leaves in a storm. She stared at her hand, shocked. Jake blinked. "Remind me never to make you mad." She didn't speak. The bracelet was glowing bright now. They ran into the streets, slipping through alleyways as alarms echoed across the city. A black hoverbike roared behind them, one of the council's elite hunters. Jake turned and fired. Missed. The hunter fired back. The blast hit Jake's shoulder. He dropped, groaning in pain. Vera screamed, "Jake!" She grabbed him and dragged him into a narrow tunnel. "Stay with me," she begged. Jake gritted his teeth. "Keep going. Leave me." "No," she said, shaking her head. "I told you, we do this together." She touched the bracelet. It pulsed with energy. Her eyes turned silver. The hunter charged into the tunnel, but was met with a wall of glowing force that erupted from Vera's hands. The tunnel collapsed behind them, sealing off the path. Vera dropped to her knees, breathing hard. Jake was unconscious. She leaned over him, her voice soft. "Don't die on me now." Hours later, Jake opened his eyes slowly. He was lying on a bed in a dark, quiet room. His arm was bandaged. His head throbbed. Vera sat nearby, watching. "You're alive," she said softly. Jake smiled weakly. "Thanks to you." Serana entered the room. "That was one hell of a show. The council's furious. You two are the most wanted beings on the planet." Vera looked at Jake. "We found the chamber. We found something powerful. I don't know what this bracelet is yet, but it chose me." Serana's eyes were sharp. "Then it's time we make them afraid of it." Final scene of Part 4. In the darkness of the palace dungeons, Chancellor Oryx stared at a large screen showing footage of Vera blasting his guards. He crushed a glass in his hand. She's not just her mother's daughter. She's something worse. He turned to his general. Send the Shadow Guard. I want her caught. And the human. I want him broken. Outside, thunder rolled through the skies. And far away, Vera stood tall, watching the city lights below, the glowing bracelet around her wrist. She wasn't running anymore. Now, she was ready to fight. Truth of the ancients. The wind howled across the frozen plains of the outer wastes. Snow swirled around the small hovercraft as it moved slowly across the icy ground. Inside, huddled together for warmth, sat Jake, Vera, and Serana. After their narrow escape from the city, the rebels took them deep into the wilderness, far beyond the council's reach. Their destination was a place whispered about in old rebel texts, a place forgotten by time, a place known only as the Temple of the First Light. Jake sat with a thick blanket over his shoulders still sore but healing. Vera sat beside him, quiet, holding the glowing bracelet in her hand. It pulsed softly every few seconds, like a heartbeat. Serana stared out the window. We're close. Jake asked, what exactly is this place? Serana didn't look back. It's the beginning of everything. Before the Empire, before the wars, even before the Council, the ancients built it to protect the truth and hide their greatest secrets. Vera gripped the bracelet tighter. Then maybe we'll find answers there. About my father. About this. Jake nodded slowly. Let's hope we don't find something worse. An hour later, the hovercraft came to a stop in front of a massive wall of ice, but buried deep in the glacier was something strange. Giant stone doors covered in glowing runes. Vera stepped out first. As she approached, the runes lit up. The doors groaned and began to open, revealing a long staircase leading down into darkness. Jake whistled. That's not creepy at all. Serana motioned forward. Come, the temple has awakened. Inside the temple, the walls were covered in strange symbols and carvings, none of them like anything Jake had ever seen. Massive statues lined the halls, humanoid figures with glowing eyes, half machine and half organic. But what shocked Jake the most were the human faces on some of the statues. Vera walked slowly, her fingers tracing a mural carved into the wall. It showed a large starship crashing onto an alien world. Then came images of war, of humans and aliens standing side by side. And then images of betrayal. Jake whispered, Are those humans? Serana nodded. According to legend, thousands of years ago, humans arrived here through a stargate. They helped build this world, fought wars for it, blood for it. Vera stared at one image, an alien queen cradling the human child. Her voice trembled. They erased all of this. They were afraid, Serana said, afraid of what humans and aliens could create together. So they buried the truth. Jake shook his head. And they're still afraid. Deeper in the temple, they entered a circular chamber. In the center stood a tall, ancient obelisk glowing with blue light. Floating around it were hundreds of small crystals, each glowing with faint memory echoes. The bracelet on Vera's wrist pulsed brighter. As she stepped forward, the crystals began to hum. One floated down and hovered in front of her. She reached out, and the room exploded with light. A vision filled their minds. The vision. A battlefield under two moons. Alien soldiers screaming. Human warriors charging beside them. A woman in silver armor, her face like Vera's, holding a staff of light. A man beside her, tall with short dark hair, holding a broken blaster. His eyes matched Jake's. The woman spoke. They will betray us, but the child will carry both our strengths. The man answered. Then let the stars remember her. The vision faded. Vera stumbled back, breathless. Jake steadied her. That was your mother. And your father. Vera blinked back tears. They knew this would happen. They planned for me to find this place. Serana stepped forward. That wasn't just a message. It was a warning. There's a reason the council fears you. Jake nodded. Because she's the future. A future they can't control. Suddenly, a loud boom shook the temple walls. Dust fell from the ceiling. Vera spun around. What was that? One of the rebels rushed in, blood on his face. We've been tracked. The Shadow Guard found us. Jake grabbed his blaster. We don't get to breathe, do we? Serana growled. We hold them here. If they take the truth, everything's lost. Vera looked at the obelisk. The bracelet on her wrist was now glowing white-hot. Another boom. The chamber doors exploded. Dozens of armored soldiers rushed in. Taller, faster, stronger than normal troops. Their black armor was silent, and their faces hidden behind masks. Jake fired. So did Serana. The rebels fought fiercely, but they were outnumbered. Vera stepped forward. Get down, she shouted. Jake dropped. Serana dove behind the obelisk. Vera raised her arms, and the bracelet unleashed a wave of light, so bright it blinded the entire room. The force knocked the Shadow Guard back, slamming them against the walls. Some didn't get back up. The chamber grew quiet again. Vera stood in the center, eyes glowing silver, chest rising and falling. She whispered, I didn't know I could do that. Jake got up slowly. Neither did they. Serana grinned. Good. Let's make sure they remember it. After the battle. The temple was damaged, but the obelisk remained. The rebels quickly gathered whatever data crystals they could. Vera stored the one with the vision safely in her cloak. Jake looked at the path ahead. We can't stay here. Serana agreed. But we can spread the truth. That vision. The world needs to see it. Vera stared into the light of the obelisk. My parents gave everything so I could finish what they started. Jake placed a hand on her shoulder. Then let's finish it. High above the capital city, Chancellor Oryx stood before a war table. A hologram of Vera's face hovered above it. She found the temple, his advisor said. The vision has been unlocked. Oryx's eyes burned with rage. Then we destroy every place that holds the truth. He turned to the army commander. Prepare the skyburners. Burn the rebels. Burn the temples. Burn everything. Rise of the underdogs. The flames of the rebellion had been lit. In secret hideouts, in broken-down factories, in old mines and frozen valleys, people whispered her name. Vera. The girl no one defended. The girl they called cursed. Now she was the one lighting the path forward. Footage of the temple vision had been sent across the stars. Rebel channels played it over and over. The people watched in silence as Queen Myra and the human warrior spoke of a future no one believed possible. Until now. It was not just a prophecy anymore. It was a movement. In the rebel base, hidden in a crystal caves, Jake stood over a holographic map with Serana and 3 rebel leaders. The map showed the Empire's power grid, lines of red stretching like veins through the heart of the capital city. If we take this node, Jake pointed, we shut down their entire east defense wall. One of the rebels frowned. That grid is buried beneath the governor's tower, guarded by elites. Jake replied, that's why they won't expect us to hit it. Serana folded her arms. You're volunteering for a suicide run. Jake looked at her. No, I'm volunteering to give Vera a chance. Everyone turned. At the cave's entrance, Vera stood quietly, listening. She walked forward. We don't win this by hiding anymore. We win by standing. Together. Her voice was stronger now. She didn't look like a girl running from her past. She looked like someone who had finally accepted her power and her pain. The plan. The mission would be in 2 parts. 1. Jake and a small team would infiltrate the governor's tower to disable the eastern defense wall. 2. Vera would lead a march of rebels into the city center to confront the Empire in broad daylight, something no one had dared to do in generations. It was risky. It was bold. It was the only chance they had. Night before the mission, Jake sat near a small fire, fixing his gear. His hands were steady, but his mind was racing. Vera approached and sat beside him. She held something in her hand, a small metal pendant with a strange star symbol. "My mother gave me this when I was 5, she said. She told me to keep it close. I never knew why." Jake smiled. "Looks like a star map." Vera nodded. "Maybe one day I'll follow it. Maybe it leads to Earth." Jake looked at her. "If we make it through this, I'll take you there." She gave a soft laugh. "You really think we'll survive tomorrow?" Jake didn't answer immediately. He stared into the flames. "I don't know, but I believe in you. And that's enough for me." At sunrise, the day of reckoning began. Jake's team of 5 slipped through the industrial district in silence. Wearing stolen uniforms and carrying stolen codes, they moved like ghosts. Meanwhile, Vera stood on the edge of the lower city, facing a crowd of rebels and citizens who had once feared her, now ready to follow her. She raised her hand. "My name is Vera, daughter of Mara. I was left to suffer in silence. You all were. But now, we speak. Now we rise." A cheer broke out. People raised tools, banners, and old weapons, and they marched. Inside the governor's tower, Jake and his team reached the underground vault where the power core pulsed quietly. 2 guards stood in their way. Jake gave a small nod, and the rebels moved fast. 1 stunned shot, 1 chokehold. No alarms triggered. They placed the charge on the control panel. Jake checked his watch. 2 minutes until detonation. "We need to move." One of the rebels asked, "What if we can't get out in time?" Jake answered, "Then we make sure it's worth it." In the capital streets, the sight of thousands marching behind Vera froze the council's watchers. Panic spread through the towers. The elite guards tried to block the roads, but were overwhelmed by sheer numbers. People weren't afraid anymore. They were angry. They were ready. Then the first explosion rang out. A wave of blue sparks shot into the sky. Lights across the east quarter died. Turrets shut down. Security drones crashed. Jake's voice came through Vera's earpiece. "Walls down. You're clear." Vera smiled. "Thank you." But Jake's voice turned serious. "We have a problem. I didn't make it out." In the underground vault, smoke filled the room. Part of the ceiling had collapsed. Jake was pinned under a steel beam, blood running down his face. He tapped his comm. "Tell her, don't come back for me." But of course, she didn't listen. 10 minutes later, Vera burst into the vault, her hands glowing bright. "Move," she shouted at the rebels. She placed both hands on the beam and screamed. Energy flowed through her body, lifting the steel like it weighed nothing. Jake gasped for air as the pressure left his chest. "You're insane," he whispered. She smiled. "Takes one to save one." Final assault. With Jake alive and the defenses down, rebels stormed the palace. Serana led the outer battle. Vera and Jake pushed toward the throne room. They reached the final door. Vera stopped. "This is it." Jake nodded. "Let's end it." Inside the throne room, Chancellor Oryx waited, his armor shining, a sword in his hand. "You dare bring rebellion into my home," he shouted. Vera stepped forward, eyes glowing silver, the bracelet pulsing like a star. "No," she said. "I bring justice." As the final battle began, the world held its breath. The girl no one defended, the human who stood for her, and the future they refused to surrender. The girl no one defended. The throne room echoed with silence. Marble walls cracked. Gold columns burned. A storm of rebellion howled just outside the tall windows. But inside, there were only 3 people. Vera, glowing with the energy of her ancestors. Jake, bruised but unshaken, blaster in hand. Chancellor Oryx, armored and angry, his red eyes burning with pride and hatred. "You shouldn't be alive," Oryx growled, stepping down from the throne. "You were supposed to disappear with your filthy bloodline." Vera didn't flinch. "You spent your whole life hiding behind robes and lies. But I was never afraid of the truth." He raised his blade. "You carry human blood. You're a mistake." Jake stepped beside her. "She's not a mistake. She's the future." Oryx sneered. "Then let's erase the future." And he charged. The final battle begins. Vera moved faster than she ever had. Her bracelet glowed with light that danced like fire. Her hands met Oryx's sword in a clash of energy and steel. Sparks exploded across the room. Jake ducked behind a pillar and fired at guards rushing in from the hall. "Vera, you've got company." She nodded, kicking Oryx backward before throwing a force wave toward the door, slamming it shut with a loud boom. The guards were locked out. It was just them now. "You can't beat me, girl," Oryx hissed. "I trained with the old masters." Vera's voice was calm. "Then your masters taught you wrong." She raised her hands. The bracelet pulsed. A beam of light shot forward. Oryx blocked it, but stumbled. His sword cracked. He roared and rushed again. Flashbacks in the fight. Every time Oryx struck, Vera saw pieces of her past. The arena, the cold cell, the stares of people who looked away. And then, Jake's voice, saying, "I'll take the hit," the first time someone had stood for her. That memory gave her strength. She caught Oryx's next attack and pushed him back with both hands. He flew across the floor, crashing into the steps of the throne. Blood dripped from his mouth. His armor cracked. "You are nothing," he gasped. "I was nothing," Vera said softly. "But I chose to become something." She stepped forward, slowly, her hand raised. Oryx tried to rise. Jake rushed in and pinned him down with a sharp knee to the chest, blaster aimed at his head. "You're finished," Jake said. "Justice, not revenge." Vera stood over Oryx, breathing hard. The light from her bracelet dimmed slightly. Jake looked at her. "End it." Vera stared down at the man who had destroyed her mother, erased her father, and nearly killed her. She raised her glowing hand, then stopped. "No," she said. "Killing him ends one man. Showing the truth ends everything he stood for." Jake slowly nodded and lowered his blaster. She turned to the throne and pressed her hand against the back wall. A hidden door opened. Inside was a control panel linked to the Empire's communication system. Serana's voice came through her earpiece. "We've taken the towers. The city is watching. They're waiting for your voice." Vera stepped forward. The speech that shook the galaxy. Screens lit up across the planet. People stopped in the streets. Rebels froze mid-fight. Soldiers paused. Even council members lowered their weapons. And then her face appeared. "My name is Vera, daughter of Queen Myra, born of two worlds, alien and human. For years, they told me I was wrong, that I was broken, that I was dangerous." She paused, voice steady. "But I've learned something powerful. What they feared was not my blood. It was my courage, my voice, my will." She looked straight into the camera. "To the people hiding, come out. To the ones afraid, stand up. To the ones suffering, hold on, because we are not silent anymore." Behind her, Jake stood proud. Oryx lay in chains. "We are the future," she said, "and no one can stop what's coming next." Across the planet, people erupted into cheers. Flags were raised. Guards threw down their weapons. Slaves broke their chains. The Empire fell, not with fire, but with truth. Later that night, the city was quiet. Vera stood at the top of the palace steps, overlooking the lights below. She wore her mother's royal cloak now, but not as a queen, as a leader. Jake joined her, holding 2 cups of hot tea. You did it, he said, handing her one. We did it, she corrected. Together. He smiled. You know, when I got stuck on this planet, I thought I was cursed. She laughed. And now? Now I'm just lucky I met the girl no one dared to stand up for. She turned to him. You didn't just stand up for me. You made me believe in myself. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Jake added, So, what now? Vera looked at the stars. We rebuild. We help people find their voices. And maybe someday, I'll visit Earth. Jake grinned. You'll love it. We have terrible weather and strange food. She chuckled. Perfect. Final scene. In the same arena where Vera once stood alone, now she stood again. But this time, thousands stood with her. Jake stood at her side. And the galaxy watched, not in silence, but in hope. The girl no one defended became the woman everyone believed in.